Mark Carney. And this is crazy thing as well. I had no idea about it. But there was some issue with the Liberal MP, and I was uh, I was actually just talking about it yesterday, right? How like 20 years ago, or even 15 years ago, if you had some scandal, you would resign straight away as a politician. Like no way you're gonna try to uh, withstand it. Like no, you made a mistake. It's politics. The trust is lost. Resign. Done. Like I didn't see anyone who, even when they faced rumors or whatever, once it was all over media, they just resigned because yeah, the trust is lost, right? Somehow nowadays the politicians, they feel like they're above normal people. They feel like they deserve to be in that position, not realizing that you're there only because people elected you, and people elected you to represent them. You're like Arnold Schwarzenegger said it. You're supposed to be a servant to the people. Like you're representing them. You're supposed to fulfill their trust. Uh yeah, like it's, you're in this position thanks to the people, not because you deserve it or anything like that. Well, obviously you deserve it because people voted for you, but it can literally disappear like this because you have responsibility to your voters, and if you don't act in the best interest of the people who voted you, you should go away. You should get fired. Like in a normal job, like if you do something else that you've been hired for, they will just get rid of you, right? If you do the bad job, you're fired. Done. Go away. Sometimes you don't even get the severance pay. It depends how bad you messed up, right? Anyway, so to put it to perspective, let's play this video so you guys actually know what happened. I'm gonna have to put the subtitles at the beginning. It's just for me, because you know my immigrant ass has a little issue to understand some accents.
I'm Terence Shen, independent journalist covering foreign policy and global affairs. Recently, Liberal MP Paul Chang suggested that someone could hand over your party's candidate Zhou Tei to China in exchange for a bounty from the communist regime. Many people saw that not only as a threat to Canadian citizen and political opponent, but also legitimizing foreign interference in our democracy. What's your response to his remarks? And after his apology, do you still believe he should be disqualified from running for office? Thank you.
So this is crazy. So some Liberal MP actually agreed that that Canada should pretty much transport a Canadian citizen to China for some bounty because China wanted him and probably will execute him, right? One notable thing to mention is that the Canadian citizen was the part of the or member of the Conservative Party. But again, it's a Canadian citizen. He's on the Canadian soil right now. If he's not murderer or anything, why should Canada send a Canadian citizen to China for him to pretty much face the execution? And China is communist regime, right? Like you can literally get thrown to the prison just because there's no freedom of speech. Like you say something that politicians over there don't like, and you can go to prison, right? It's ridiculous. And yeah, like I'm from the country that was occupied by Russia, and my great grandmother was political prisoner. So it's not far fetched. Like once you go against the regime, and by go against the regime I mean just the freedom of speech, like you're loud about how it might not be ideal, they can just throw you to the prison, take all your land and everything, right? Sometimes even execute you. So yeah, let's see what Mr. Poliev says about that.
Yes, he must be disqualified. I find it incredible that Mark Carney would allow someone to run for his party that called for a Canadian citizen to be handed over to a foreign government on a bounty, a foreign government that would almost certainly execute that Canadian citizen. Think about that for a second.
It's
We
ridiculous.
have a Liberal MP saying that a Canadian citizen should be handed over to a foreign dictatorship to get a bounty so that that citizen could be murdered.
Like I've never heard about this. I've never heard about this happening at all. Like unless the person of interest is like murderer or something like that, which obviously he's not in this case. Are you okay, Doggo? Yeah, which obviously he's not in this case. Like the country should have a bag of their citizens, right? Like if you're Canadian, the Canada should fight for you. Again, that's just in case you're not murderer. Like in that case, I would agree to ship him to China. And I mean, honestly, I would agree. Just send him to China. If he murdered someone over there, let them deal with it. But if it's something else, which obviously is, like, what the hell are you talking about? Just protect the Canadians. Protect your people. And in this case, the PM is in Canada. He's not in China. He's not in Chinese prison. We're not dealing with releasing him. He's literally at home. So why should Canada send him to this communist regime to do whatever they want with him? Just give me 1 second. I'll have to let my doggo out. Let's go. Sorry for that. But yeah, again, it just proves that liberals don't care about people. And in this case, I know they're including politics because obviously the PM, the person of interest, is a member of Conservative Party. But still, he's still Canadian. What are we talking about?
And Mark Carney says he should stay on as a candidate. What does that say about whether Mark Carney would protect Canadians? Mark Carney is deeply conflicted. Just in November, he went to Beijing and secured a $250 million loan for his company from a state-owned Chinese bank.
So he has ties to China. Mark Carney has ties to China. How can you trust someone like that? How is that not a conflict of interest? Well, Pierre Poilievre just said it, right? But yeah, just let that sink in. How is that not the conflict of interest? Didn't we hear something about China trying to what's that word? Not interrupt. Interfere with the Canadian elections. When was it? 2021? Something like that. I don't remember when. But yeah, there was a lot of accusations that the China tried to interfere with the election. And look, Mark Carney has the ties to the China, to Beijing, probably Chinese government as well, but that's just my guess, right? I don't really think anything in China happens without the knowledge of the government. That's why I think that the ties to Beijing are probably going to be ties to government as well. But again, that's just my guess. Don't take my word for it. But yeah, that's an interesting thing, right? One of the liberal candidates agrees with sending people to China to execute them. And then you find out that Mark Carney actually will keep that candidate on the ballot. So yeah, the candidate won't even lose the job for saying this. And look, there's a conflict of interest for Mark Carney. Let that sink in.
He's deeply compromised, and he will never stand up for Canada against any foreign regime.
I mean, you don't have to go far, right? Once Mark Carney knew that the President Trump won the election, he just moved his headquarter, the headquarter of his company from Toronto to New York. How does it scream Canadian? I'm Canadian. I believe in Canada. No, that's literally I believe in my own interests, and that's it, right? And back then he was already advisor to Trudeau, if I'm correct. So
is another reason why Mr. Carney must show us all his assets, all the money he owes, all the money that his companies owe to foreign hostile regimes. And this story might not be entirely the story of the bounty and a Liberal MP calling for a Canadian to be handed over for execution to a foreign government might not be something that the everyday Canadian can relate to because it's so outrageous. But I ask you this. If Mark Carney would allow his Liberal MP to make a comment like this, when would he ever protect Canada or Canadians against foreign hostility? He has never put Canada first, and that's why we cannot have a fourth Liberal term. After the lost Liberal decade, our country is a playground for foreign interference. Our economy is weaker than ever before, our people more divided. We need a change to put Canada first with a new government that will stand up for the security and economy of our citizens and take back control of our destiny. Let's bring it home.
So let's talk about it a little bit more. In this case, we're talking about Chinese, right? Chinese government, China. We know about Chinese interference in election, where it's just a hoax or no. The idea is there, right? And it's not just in Canada. It's in the U.S. as well. We know the U.S. right now and President Trump. They're afraid of China espionage, and probably in Canada as well. The Chinese ships all over the Greenland and now Gulf of America, right? And yet, Prime Minister Carney is okay with, and I know people will argue that he's not okay with it, that it wasn't him who said that, but he supports the candidate from the member of the Liberal Party who said that, who literally said, yes, send him to China, send a Canadian citizen to China, whatever, right? Like, in the situation in the world right now, that's not a good thing to hear. And then you hear about the ties to Beijing and all of it. Like, do you really want a prime minister who has anything to do with China, who's not trying to protect Canada from China, but he's willing to cooperate with them? And I don't mean like cooperate on peace, on environment deal or anything like that, but literally send a Canadian citizen to death. That's not someone you want. Well, I'm not gonna tell you who you want to vote for, right? But again, use your logic. Look at the fact. And again, I'm gonna mention it again. I'm gonna mention it every day from now on until the election. Just look at the past. Think what you want in the future. Look if your past experience, your last 9 years, if the way it worked in Canada, if that will bring you to the future you want. If your answer is no, you need to vote for someone else. You need to vote for someone who at least gives you hope for a change. Because you know how it looks the 3 previous terms. And it's gonna look the same the 4th term. Like they just changed the face, they rebranded, but the ideals and the agenda of the Liberals is still the same. It doesn't matter if it's face of Trudeau or Mark Carney. The political party is still the same and it's not gonna change. So again, vote with your logic and Let's put Canada first. Let's restore that Canadian promise again.